Hey, this is Dan Cordell for the Film Practice. Today we're going to be talking about how to set up a home studio for shooting video. And to do that, I'm going to give you a little tour of my space and describe the reasons that I did certain things and the equipment that's inside of it. And we'll talk about the challenges that I had, and there were many, in creating a shooting studio out of this particular spot. The first thing to decide when you're setting up a home studio is where to put it. I decided to put mine in my basement for a few different reasons. The first was that I wanted a place where I could just shoot, where I didn't have to set up and break down equipment. I also wanted a consistent look to my videos, and I wanted a quiet space, and this happens to be the quietest place in my house. Even so, there's reflected sound down here, and so I solved that by putting a little carpet on the floor, and I put old curtains hanging from the ceiling, as well as sound blankets. I wanted to use lights that I already had, and I happen to have these old umbrella lights that came as part of a kit. I modified them by adding extra bulbs behind each umbrella, and I put them pretty far to my left and right, because if I put them any further forward, they would cause the reflections in my glasses to be too distracting. Umbrella lights are great because they give you a nice soft light, but on the downside, they don't really modify light beyond that, and I wanted to keep light from the umbrellas from striking the backdrop. So I hung black fabric from the ceiling to keep the light from hitting the backdrop. Behind and on the ceiling is a dish light with an LED bulb in it, which is acting as a backlight. Backlight is important because it helps create a more three-dimensional look to your videos. The thing to realize when you're looking at the lighting in my space is that you can really get a great result without investing a lot in lights. All it takes is a little bit of know-how in terms of where to position the lights and how to modify the lights that you have to get the look you want. With sound, on the other hand, you kind of get what you pay for, and I decided to invest in good equipment because I appreciate great audio when it comes to video. Hanging from the ceiling is a Sennheiser microphone, which produces amazing sound and has a very quiet noise floor. The sound is traveling into a Sound Devices MixPre 6, which has very quiet preamps and produces fantastic recordings. One of the big challenges I had in setting up my space was low ceilings. I would have liked to have put sound dampening sheetrock up there, but I decided to leave the joists exposed so that I could put my lights a little bit higher, as well as put my backdrops a little bit higher. The backdrop I've been preferring lately is a medium gray muslin drop. As you can see, it's got wrinkles in it and a couple of folds. However, with the way that I light it, it comes across as being kind of a textured, very dark gray look. Not quite infinite space, but pretty close to that. The backdrop is on a roll and it's hanging up between the joists. Behind it are other backdrops that I can use if I ever want a different look. As I mentioned before, using sound blankets and curtains in your space really helps keep echoes to a minimum. This is a professional sound blanket made by a company called Producer's Choice, but you can use packing blankets. Anything really will work as long as it keeps the sound down. Here's another look at that flag that's hanging from the ceiling. It's just a piece of black fabric that's modifying the light. It's keeping the light from striking the backdrop and helping me turn it into a darker gray. On the other end of the room, you see my tripod, and that's the tripod I use to put my camera on. The camera that I use is the Panasonic GH4. The most current version is the GH5, but this camera works perfectly. I've got an old Canon ultrasonic 2835mm lens on there with an adapter that enables me to use a Canon lens on a Panasonic camera. Taking another look at this end of the room, you can see on the left a homemade sound panel, which is protecting sound from bouncing off of a piece of equipment in the corner of the room. You may have noticed there's an LCD monitor above where my camera is normally positioned. I use that monitor to make sure that my composition and lighting is exactly the way I want it to be. I also use it for critical focusing, because even though the GH4 has autofocus, I like to be sure that it's perfect. So what I do is I drop a focus aid into my composition, and then I go over to the camera and make sure that it's perfectly focused. And here's what it looks like when I get on camera. As you can see, the composition is good and the lighting is working. The microphone is peeking in a little from the top so that I could get it as close as possible to my mouth, but that's okay because I'm going to crop in post. And here's what it looks like when I finish with it. All I've done here is to do a little color correction and to crop in. Those changes took no more than 2 minutes to make. In fact, I'll spend more time on the audio with these videos than I do with the picture. Now, this is just a studio space, and as such, it's very good for putting focus on the subject, in this case me, and also for using text on the side. From a space like this, with a background like this, you can pretty much cut to anything and anywhere, and there's really nothing distracting you from what's going on. However, there's also great value to shooting in realistic places, whether those are completely fabricated as sets or whether they are just available to you in your home or office or outdoors. Now, there are different challenges that come up if you're using real spaces, if you're shooting on location. And what I hope to do in future videos is go to real spots and finesse them so that they work really well for making videos. I hope this has been of use to you, and if it has, please like and subscribe to this channel so that you see more videos like this.